everybody, and welcome to Film Freaks TV. I'm your host, Jonathan Mooney. I'm here with
G Larry Butler.
And Larry and I are talking, because this is going to be a new segment that we're going to do, that Paul and I are going to do. We're going to trade off every week. We're going to be talking about filmmakers that we love, absolutely love. And so I felt like this would be a perfect thing to have Larry as part of, because Larry and I have been, hanging out, doing all these different things. Thought, why not? We just filmed an Indie Film Cafe episode, another one. So I felt, why don't we just do this? So we're going to talk about, my biggest thing is Alfred Hitchcock is my favorite filmmaker, like, ever. It used to be Kevin Smith was, like, my favorite, and Kevin Smith is still up there, and he'll be one of the ones on my list of, people. But, Alfred Hitchcock has definitely inspired me, has changed my life on many occasions, and this is going to be all about Alfred Hitchcock. So, to begin with, I guess I want to talk with both you and me real quick, since you're going to be in this. Are you a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock?
Oh, absolutely. I remember back in the 50s watching, his show, his TV show called Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Mm-hmm. I also did the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, where he did like an hour-long show.
Right. Yeah, he was absolutely amazing. And he's, a lot of people parody him, of course, but that's like flattery in a way, because people really did love him. And he has a unique style of filmmaking, almost unlike anybody else. And
William Castle, mimicked him, or whatever.
True.
He would introduce the movies, kind of like Alfred Hitchcock did. Yeah. He would introduce his films right before all the feature films. Right. So that, like, it's like he took the idea of Alfred Hitchcock's stuff and then did that, which I think really pissed off Alfred Hitchcock. I wouldn't, because, at that time he was very clever and very original and very different. And now all of a sudden he's being like mimicked and mocked or whatever in the William Castle stuff, even though it's not mocking. He's not like making fun of him, but he's kind of doing his own thing. So.
Yeah, well, spoofing somebody can be the height of flattery at the same time.
Can also be rude.
Actually, well, yeah.
Like,
if you take it to a certain degree, so it's rude. But
it's a little rude, but it's okay. It's William Castle, I don't think was nearly as clever or interesting as. But I would like, because we have a biopic on Alfred Hitchcock. I would love to see somebody do a biopic on the life of William Castle and stuff, instead of, because Alfred Hitchcock had one called Hitchcock,
right?
And
right, yeah, I saw that
with Anthony Hopkins playing him. And there's also another movie called The Girl, which was about Tippi Hedren and making the birds,
and his obsession with her.
I forgot who the guy played him, but I honestly loved Anthony Hopkins as him, because Anthony got the mannerisms down, and we were talking about that earlier, how he would talk a certain way, he acted a certain way when he was in the public, so
True. Al Hopkins is one of my favorite actors. Incredible genius.
He's still amazing.
I haven't seen The Two Popes yet, but I plan to do it. And they said he's great in that too. So everything he does,
he doesn't act like every once a month or something. No. He doesn't take like every project. He's very picky, and I think he's kind of like Daniel Day-Lewis, and that he picks movies that are going to, to be something special, and that people would go, oh, there's an Anthony Hopkins movie. And I'm very surprised that Alfred Hitchcock and Anthony Hopkins never worked together, because they would have been phenomenal together. Like, that would have been a great. I think that would have been about the time that Anthony Hopkins was just starting out, would be the ending of Alfred Hitchcock's career, and everything. So
yeah, there wasn't much overlap there. That's true. But anyway, one of my favorite actors, and I used to imitate him, and just years ago, I used to do 22 celebrity voices, and I did him a little bit. But he was so heavy that it actually affected his vocal cords, so it's really impossible to totally imitate him unless you're that heavy. But I used to try to do. Alfred Hitchcock light.
Right.
So anyway, but he was just such an incredible man because he believed that in order to be to have complete suspense, you had to be very subtle in your approach, and you can't hit people over the head. People value shock value nowadays, but he had a milder, more gradual approach, and he would suggest things, and he wanted the audience to be collaborative with him. He didn't want them to make them spectators. He wanted to bring them in a collaborative process that they would actually use their own imaginations to fill out all the gaps, the empty spaces. He didn't want he didn't want to be too graphic, in other words. So he thought the theater of the mind would actually work better than if he showed you too much too soon. So.
Well, it's just like in the movie Jaws, where you don't really see the shark. Now, that particular instance, they actually had a shark. The shark didn't work that much, so they had to use the idea of the imagination.
Yeah.
Now,
accidentally, yeah.
Yeah, accidentally, and so I feel like that a lot of filmmakers and a lot of actors these days, or a lot of filmmakers these days, typically make movies like indie films, especially. They try to do that because they can't afford to have like this big monster and everything,
right?
And then it loses its thing because they are nowhere near as well crafted as somebody, say, Steven Spielberg or Alfred Hitchcock. Right. So their films don't look nearly as good or whatever.
But some of the best science fiction movies about aliens and stuff worked better when they didn't show the aliens until maybe the very end, which in Spielberg's case, the third encounter, but so it works to not always show the monster or whatever you're afraid of. And what was it? The people were the pod people.
Oh yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The Body Snatchers. Yeah, that was a good example of that.
Well, yeah, because you didn't need, your imagination was already running wild because you were wondering who the next person was that was the killer. And Alfred Hitchcock would have done a wonderful job with like Invasion of the Body Snatchers had he been given that to do. But then again, he didn't like horror. He did not like horror. He liked suspense. He liked movies where you didn't know who the bad guy was necessarily. You didn't know usually there was a wrong man involved. So I'm gonna go through the tropes of like what makes a Alfred Hitchcock movie an Alfred Hitchcock movie generally. I guess different ones for different movies and everything. First movie being first thing being like there's usually a wrong man. Somebody's usually not the actual killer, but he like people think he's the killer.
Misdirection.
Right. Nowadays they would have to take that to the new level of like, he's the wrong man, but at the end he is the right man. You look at movies, but like, that do that these days or whatever because the other stuff is so overdone already. Second thing being that what is it? Alfred Hitchcock liked trains. There's almost a train in almost every one of his movies. I want to say like maybe Psycho and Rear Window. There wasn't Rope. Might not have one because a lot of those were specific things, and he liked little gimmicks like that. He liked Rope, where it was supposed to all take place looking like it was shot in one shot, but really it wasn't because they didn't have like nowadays they can do that. Like they did that movie 1917, I think, and that was all supposedly shot. And I bet I don't think it could have been done in one continuous take because that would be literally one day that they would be able to shoot that whole movie. That would be amazing if that's what happened. But it's supposed to look like that. It's supposed to look like it's just one take. And what they would generally do is they would shoot the scene, and then when they got to the end, which I think is like 7 minutes or something, they would go into like somebody's shirt, right? And when they would pull back, it would be the new reel. But you wouldn't really know that unless you knew that. Then all of a sudden, every time you see it, you're like, that's when the new reel starts,
Of course,
There's a lot of little things like it's tried to do that again, I believe, in Under Capricorn. Under Capricorn was one of my least favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies. I don't have many of those. Even his least favorite are better than like a lot of people's, good movies, or whatever, like my least favorite is better than, some people's great movies, because my least favorite of his movies are still fantastic movies. They're just, I have to put them down as like I like this a little better. I think at the end I'll go over like kind of maybe my top 10 movies or something, or even I like to talk about like the top 10 like obscure movies that nobody talks about or something. But I didn't write any of them down. I might just mention them. So yeah, what's your favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie?
Oh God, I would have to say either The Birds or Psycho.
Birds or Psycho?
Yeah, I think The Birds probably because you're dealing with an animal that most people don't. Sometimes they're annoying,
right?
These crows or ravens, but they're not scary and threatening, and that was a totally original idea. I think I don't know if it had ever been done before.
No, and at that time, because like the birds are not viewed as threatening. Especially like they got regular birds, like they didn't get like the hawks or the crows or anything that's like kind of threatening looking,
right.
Or eagles. They got like regular like blackbirds and stuff and a bunch of different kind of birds. And I think that's even a little bit of what scared a lot of people when they first watched it, is because it was just regular birds, but a different kinds of regular birds. It wasn't like all the same kind of birds, And again, that's another thing that people generally do is they'd be like the crows, right? And they'd make it all about the crows hunting. This is the birds. It's every kind of bird, and some are scarier looking and some are like just regular looking, but I bet the birds did stuff that like Jaws did for the water. Birds did for like everybody walking outside.
Yes.
As like people just walking outside sees a bird, they're probably like is that bird gonna attack?
Yeah, they do attack people individually. I've been attacked by crows.
Have
before.
you?
Yeah, my girlfriend that used to live in Huntington Beach and go down and they would attack me. They're very territorial.
Yeah.
And
don't fuck with their
go down
territory.
and hit you in the head, and dive bomb you. And I think,
dive bomb.
But the very idea of a swarm scares people. It just terrifies them.
Have you ever seen a movie called Birdemic?
No.
Oh my god.
Is it a parody of?
No, it is it's a very, very bad movie. We reviewed it on the first season of Indie Film Cafe. I picked it because I knew Paul was eventually going to pick it at some point. I think because it's just one of those really awful movies. Eventually, I want to do, maybe if I ever get you back. Well, you have to watch the first one, but maybe I'll get you for Birdemic 2. Oh.
Okay.
Oh my god, they made a sequel and. It tried to be a parody of itself, but like the guy doesn't know how to make fun of himself. I don't know. It's bad. It's just awful. But anyway, the point is they dive bomb and like literally bomb. Like
with
the
birds.
No, with like you would hope like that would be the thing. No, literally
drown people in bird
they
shit.
They have the birds just go poof, like just attack and then they would just explode. It was like, what the hell is wrong with this movie? But it was like, obviously, this guy was a fan of the birds and didn't know how to make a birds, homage or whatever, the right way. It's just, it's so bad on every level.
But at least you can laugh at it, right? I mean,
Yes, it made it on our show as something that we tortured our poor friend Jen on. Oh god. Yeah, it was bad. But given to that, you said the birds and Psycho, and I guess Psycho is like my favorite film of his, and I think mainly because I just absolutely, it's one of those movies I can watch over and over and over again. There's a few of those movies. Generally speaking, I love his films, and I think we're gonna have one from me on Film Freaks, and then we're gonna for an actual episode where we talk about one of his movies. And then we're also going to have another episode of Criterion Watch with, because he's done a lot of films that have gone on Criterion, so on the Criterion Collection. Wow. Do you know about the Criterion Collection?
No, kind of new at this. So.
Yeah, well, Criterion Collection is like the best of the best.
Okay.
You know, basically these are films that have somehow or whatever kind of changed the landscape of filmmaking or something in some way or another. Truffaut, the director Truffaut, Francis Truffaut, you know, Alfred Hitchcock, tons of different. Scorsese, I think, has a couple of them actually. Right? No, it's not just
across the board.
It's all everybody, drama.
All right.
You know, comedy. I mean, they have every genre.
So there's no stinkometer with this, right?
These are the best movies.
The best of the best.
Yeah, and we don't rate them like that. I mean, I don't think we even rate them at all. We just talk about how much we enjoy them. Just like on Film Freaks, we talk about how much we enjoy the movies. Or because we rewatched them, like we did with Chasing Amy, we rewatched Chasing Amy, and we thought, oh wow, this is a lot. You know, this has definitely changed. Our opinion on it has changed. You know, we might like it still, but it's not like up as high as it used to be. And that happens with some movies. Yeah. Alfred Hitchcock, I believe, I always have felt that his movies are timely. They are something that if you can watch it now and still really enjoy them. There are some things that might be questionable of the things that he's done. There was I forgot what movie it was. There was a character in blackface doing a bit on a stage or whatever, but at that time in the 1930s and everything, that was the entertainment and everything. True. And then
vaudeville,
and then the characters would zoom up, the camera would zoom up into the thing, and I mean, just the camera angles and the shots and everything were just perfect. Wow. And I love Hitchcock, not just for the fantastic stories he develops and changes, because he doesn't usually write. He usually gets somebody else to write them, but he's got a hand in there. You know, he's not just saying, you write me this and I'll go and direct it. He's like, write me this specific thing, and then if I like it, you know, but if not, I'll give you notes. And you know, I have a book of his called the Alfred Hitchcock Notebook, and it does have like a bunch of his notes and stuff on his scripts and different things he wanted to change in different of his movies. Wonderful books. If I recommend anything at all, I recommend buying all these different books that are out on Amazon Prime. You can get them now, you know, that are about Alfred Hitchcock. If you just look up Alfred Hitchcock books, tons of them, especially Alfred Hitchcock Truffaut. Wonderful book. Oh, yeah, Truffaut interviewed him, and from every single one of his movies, like from they did it. I forgot how long it took, but it took a while. He actually went through every single movie of his, from his first movie that he tried to do, the whatever in his early life, all the way to what he was doing at that particular time.
My God.
Yeah, I think they went through everything. You know, it was amazing.
So you're kind of you studied him quite a bit.
I have. I still study him. I can't say like I'm not a historian or anything by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a really big fan, I guess. If I like a filmmaker, I will do whatever I can to find out more about this filmmaker. Just like I started with Kevin Smith, started reading all his books that they made about him. I have a bunch of his books. I have a bunch of, you know what I mean? So that's what I did with Alfred Hitchcock. When I became a fan, started buying all these books. I started really diving into it. And that was like sort of semi-recently too. It wasn't, it was in the past like 10 years or so that I really got into Alfred Hitchcock, because when I was younger, I didn't like Alfred Hitchcock because I didn't like black and white movies. We had discussed that earlier with your daughter. Right. You kind of got her into that, and she actually really likes it. I was never into it when I was a kid. I hated black and white movies, and
I grew up with it in the 50s because that's all we had. Color didn't come out till middle 50s, so we had TV before that, and so.
I was very lucky to actually see. Did you see Psycho in the theater?
Yeah.
So you saw it in the theater when it first came out. What was your like? Because you didn't probably know like much about Hitchcock or whatever.
No, we had no, pre-concepts of anything. Was that one of his early ones?
1960 is one of his later ones.
Oh, one of his later ones. Okay. Well, we just, lived in a small town in Northern California, and we just didn't have much access to movies or anything. And whatever they showed in the theater, we watched. So nobody knew anything about this. And so when it first came out and, the shower scene and all that, we were shocked.
Uh-huh.
It was like scandalous. But so much so that it was extremely popular. People love to be scandalized.
Well, I think that was the amazing thing about the time period is that there was no internet. There was no, like,
wasn't much
TV,
in the newspapers
really
either.
much.
Yeah,
TV was just like in that particular time when Psycho was coming out. It was just really starting to like pick up and everything. There's radio or whatever, but like there was.
Oh, I wanted to mention that. I'm glad you brought that up because Hitchcock was influenced by radio.
Mm-hmm.
Remember their old radio programs? It was called The Theater of the Mind because you couldn't watch it.
Mm-hmm.
You had to imagine what was happening. He loved that idea because it built suspense. You had to create your own image of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so that influenced him greatly.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
It's still wonderful to listen to these old radio programs. If
some of them are
them,
fantastic.
It's hard to find.
No, they're not. Actually, YouTube has a lot of them.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
well,
check that out. They do put up a lot of those old radio stuff. I listen to them. It's harder for me because I am more of a visual person.
Yeah,
I like to watch stuff. I've never really liked, unless it's like a podcast and I'm like learning something, I don't really like to listen to stuff or music, when I'm kind of just trying to distract my brain or whatever. But I don't really like to watch like stories and stuff, and I'm not very good at that. Like radio was never that kind of thing for me. I mean, even when I started my first podcast, the idea was never to do like a radio play or anything. It was always to do a learning kind of thing, like me talking to people like you and chatting about this stuff.
Well, if you're a driver, it's wonderful to listen to these things. If you can get them on the radio.
Yeah.
They used to have them a lot, but now it's less so. But I listen to Coast to Coast, which is kind of the paranormal late at night.
Nice.
So that serves I'm always listening to stuff like that. So it would fill that. But now I guess with YouTube, you said. And all
you could probably look up and that stuff. That's amazing. You can watch YouTube on your TV these days. I mean, it's just an amazing world to be living right now. But then you look at how simple and easy things were back in the... I mean, easy. I don't know if it's not necessarily easy because, it was different.
Totally different. We had to turn the aerial in the backyard or on the roof. And one guy would lean out the window, little left. No, you idiot, to the right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you get 3 channels, and that was all you got.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. So it's a totally different world. It was all black and white in the early 50s. And so then things changed gradually. But
exactly.
Wow.
But to go back to the more of Hitchcock stuff. So yeah, obviously the top 5 movies generally are, and some of these kind of interchange or something. There's 5 or 6 that kind of get interchanged depending on who the person is that does it. But generally speaking, Psycho, Rear Window, North by Northwest, The Birds, and Rope maybe. What was the other one? Vertigo, definitely.
Do you know what North by Northwest original title was going to be?
I think when you say it, I'll be like, yep.
The Man Hanging from Lincoln's Nose.
Yep, I remember. That was the original title.
Mount Rushmore, where it ends up with Cary Grant.
But that's a spoiler, you know.
Sorry.
No. I'm just saying that's why. No. I'm just saying, people watching to think about a Hitchcock probably already, hopefully, know. But no, it's a spoiler for like the title, the man hanging from Lincoln's nose. If that's in the movie, like later at the end of the movie, they wouldn't want to do that. So.
Well, we didn't want to spoil it. You don't know if he fell or not, but I'm not going to say.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that. But that was so cool. Them walking around Mount Rushmore. He's done that. That's also another trope of his that he likes to put in a lot of his movies.
Yes.
Is that like specific, like cool scenes at specific landmarks. Mount Rushmore was one. There was another one, another like big landmark, like maybe the Statue of Liberty or something. There's been tons of these different places that people go to.
Yes, that's true.
And he likes them. He likes those landmarks. Like Man Who Knew Too Much, I think, had one. I think Foreign Correspondent had a scene like that. There's a bunch of different movies that have done that.
How'd you really know your movies?
I don't know. I mean, I know Alfred Hitchcock because I've studied a lot of the stuff that he's done, and I've loved him. I absolutely adore his films. So, always will. Like, he's up there as one of my favorites for probably all time. So, all-time favorites.
Yeah. Interesting fellow.
He was. A lot of people have said he was, like, the stuff that he did, the way that he acted would not fly in today's standards, especially... He was very misogynistic at times. He was very rude. He would tell his actors if his actors kind of disagreed with them. He would tell them basically to fuck off. Like, not maybe in those words or not, but in his very strong British, tone, he would tell them like, look, I'm the director, you're the actor, you just do what I say, puppet. Go do it. That kind of thing. In a way that would be his thing. And he was very much like, there was another director called named William Wyler.
Yes.
Who directed many, many movies like Miss Miniver and a bunch of other films, Three Foxes, stuff like that. Wonderful director. He was also very hard to work with. But everybody knew working with him was going to get them an Oscar. Because generally that's what he did. There are very few filmmakers these days that are like that. There's very few filmmakers these days that maybe Martin Scorsese, that he's going to be nominated for an Oscar. Quentin Tarantino generally gets picked as for Oscars. They don't.
Spielberg a little bit.
Spielberg, sometimes it depends. Like there are some movies. Even his movie, like even Ready Player One, got an Oscar nominated for like special effects. But that movie was never gonna get like Best Picture. It just wasn't the type of movie that the Academy likes. However, movies like Lincoln would get So if that it's a movie like that, it's gonna get Oscar nominated. P.T. Anderson, maybe Paul Thomas Anderson, who did like Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love and tons of movies. Always most likely going to go up for an Oscar because once you've gone up for an Oscar, people are looking for that, and like they know the next movie is generally speaking going to be something. Alfred Hitchcock was definitely one of them. I don't know if he ever won any Oscars though. I know he's been nominated, but I don't think he's ever won any. And Hitchcock.
Oh, Hitchcock.
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
He's been nominated, I'm pretty sure, by a bunch of them, but always, kind of snubbed by the Academy. Yeah. Maybe, I hate to say it, maybe because he's British.
It's political to some degree.
Yeah, so I think there might be a little bit. Plus, maybe, there's so many good movies out. It's really hard. But he's made so many amazing ones. Another one I want to talk about real quick is Lifeboat. If anybody knows me, knows I am not a fan of like one place, a movie taking place in one location, like one, especially like one, like claustrophobic location. Lifeboat is one of the many exceptions, a few exceptions that I have. Lifeboat is amazing. It's written kind of like a play. You can literally make a play out of it because all it does is take place in a lifeboat, or whatever when they're. So
I've seen that one.
And it's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
What else? I love Suspicion, Notorious. They're all like one word movies, but he's done a lot of them. Spellbound. He's done a lot of them. Trouble with Harry. God,
how many did he make?
I think 80
80 movies.
I think so. Don't quote me on that, but he's made a lot because he started in the with The Lodger. It was his like first like official Hitchcock movie or whatever, and it's like a silent film. I watched it. I need to watch it again at some point, you know, because it just didn't do anything for me when I first watched it. Kind of bored me, so I need to rewatch it like with more eye to detail and stuff like that because I don't know, maybe it just was not, maybe it was just that night or something, maybe I was too tired, I don't know. You never know, and that's the problem with movies these days is a lot of people don't give movies a chance because they get tired or whatever and they need to watch it when they're not tired,
Right, exactly.
you know, that kind of thing. So I might give that another try, but he's made so many. I need to watch all of his older movies. A lot of them are public domain, so you see him on like, you know, lists of different, you know, like a whole bunch of different, you know, movies put together into one thing. Or
plus
whatever.
all those TV episodes that he did too. It's incredible. It's like Twilight Zone, you know, or Outer Limits. Or
he didn't direct all of them, but he did direct a few, you know, and stuff. And he did have a hand. From what I remember hearing in an interview, he does have a hand in the storylines, making sure the storylines are Hitchcock approved kind of thing. So he's very particular about that because, I mean, I'm sure he doesn't want a bad episode going out and then people kind of going, oh, look at Hitchcock sucking, you know. So he's very particular about it. If he's going to put his name on it, he wants to make sure it's good. So usually anything he's done is pretty good. Like I said, the only one I haven't really got into, and I need to maybe rewatch it again also, is Under Capricorn, which I just felt was it's not that great. You know, it was okay. I don't know. I'll have to rewatch it.
Well, everybody has one, right?
Maybe, but it wasn't a bomb or anything. I don't think it was like a movie that bombed and sucked or something. It just wasn't that great. I just rewatched Shadow of Doubt recently, which I absolutely love. That movie as the movie that's viewed as like Hitchcock's favorite film, and he's actually disputed it in that Truffaut book, saying that he never actually physically said that, or if he doesn't remember ever saying that, and if he said it in jest, you know, or something. You know, that's my favorite film because. But everybody kind of blew that up as, oh, that's everybody's. And I posted something on Facebook about it, and then somebody wrote, his favorite film. And I was like, oh, man. See, if you look into it and you find out this information, you know that it maybe not his actual favorite film. But, you know, that's the thing with the internet these days. Like, who knows what to believe? You know, you have to hear it from the horse's mouth themselves, you know, generally.
I know.
Yes. So,
hard to find that horse's mouth.
I know. Well, horses don't generally want to talk, you know. But yeah, so that's the thing. So I think, honestly, Hitchcock is by far one of my, like I said, one of my favorite directors. I feel like the thing I enjoy the most about Hitchcock's films is the fun and the comedy that he has in a lot of them. He generally will make it'll make some kind of goofy comment. I'm like, did they said that back then? Like, I mean, he was definitely
he had a sly humor, sly sense of humor. Plus, he was in several of those movies, right?
Well, he did a cameo like thing, like
didn't he do it for almost every one of them?
Yeah, I think from The Lodger on, he tried to at least put himself somewhere in the movie.
Yeah, and you try to find him, like, where's Waldo?
Like, it's where's Waldo? It's where's Alfred? It's wonderful. I love it because, I mean, most of the time I'm not looking for him, but if I find him, I'm like, there he is.
It's a happy surprise.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because he'll be like some guy picking up a newspaper, and then Stan Lee stole that. For
a lot of directors
movies.
are doing it now.
I mean,
even the indies.
Yeah, why not? Right? Why not? Or they just put themselves in the movie and just have them as the actor, the main star, or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Why not? You know. Generally speaking, they shouldn't, because if they've never really acted, you know.
Well, yeah.
You know, but Alfred Hitchcock was never an actor. You know, he never did that on purpose. You know, like he never set out to be an actor. He just put himself as a cameo in his movies.
Right.
So there you go.
Incredible.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a fantastic director. I absolutely love him. I would probably continue to watch. Like I said, I want to watch more of his older films. I want to one day, like, if there's ever like a course or something on somebody who's like a renowned, a Hitchcockian film scholar, I would love to like take a course and learn some of the tricks of the trade of how he did some of the stuff. And that's what I like about the DVDs and the Blu-rays of his films. It's generally a lot of them like, have like a ton of special features. Some of them will do commentary, and then some of them will actually give you behind the scenes, and it'll have Alfred Hitchcock, like his daughter Pat Hitchcock. She'll talk about working on some of the movies. Like she was in Psycho. She was the woman in okay, so Marion Crane, the main girl, the one, Janet Leigh's character who gets stabbed in the shower. She stole the money from her boss, and that like set the whole thing off, right?
Yeah,
and in the thing in the office, she's talking with this guy, or she's talking with this woman, and that happened to be Alfred Hitchcock's daughter, Pat Hitchcock. We were talking about stuff. Then this guy walks in and starts talking to them and talking about how much money he has and blah blah blah, and like that they need him to, they need her to put it in his safety deposit box or whatever at the bank, and that sets the whole thing off and everything. But then you listen to the commentary, and it talks about how he went from color. He used different color stuff. Like when she was getting dressed, right? She had like a white bra on, right, or something. And then she goes into the other room, comes back, and she has a black bra on. And that was supposed to be signifying that she's now stealing the money. And that, right? But nobody picks that stuff up.
Oh my God.
I mean, who goes to think of it?
It's very subtle. Yeah.
It's very subtle. And when you hear it, though, you're like, now when you rewatch it, if you rewatch Psycho, you'll see that scene and you'll be like, there you go. So, there you go. You people at home, if you can watch it.
Pick up some copies of Alfred Hitchcock.
His films.
You won't be disappointed.
Some of his older films. Well, I mean, all of his films are older films.
They're all old, but they're great.
I think the last film he did was like in 1980.
It's like a fine wine.
Family Plot, which is really fucking good. I was like, if you're gonna end your career on a movie, because it really set the tone. Like Frenzy was like right before it, and then Family Plot was back to his old self being like kind of fun and jovial and whatever. But it's just amazing. His stuff. To Catch a Thief. He loved blondes. Grace Kelly was she was so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, he had a true obsession with her, right?
I think so. He was really disappointed when she became Princess of Monaco and left. He wanted her back, and then he had to deal with Tippi Hedren, and so he had to bring Tippi back for Marnie, even though he did not have a great experience with her on The Birds. She watched that girl movie. You hear a different side. I don't know which side is which because I wasn't there. I can't make up my mind. But I've heard he was not. He sicked real birds on Tippi and stuff like that. I don't know.
She told me about that.
She
I
did.
Had good fortune of meeting her. Yeah, he was a little cruel.
Well, that might be a little bit of like because he was married to his wife. He wasn't able to actually. He did not ever, as far as I know, he never had an affair. He would definitely be a big product of the Me Too movement if he were a filmmaker today. He would not be able to do a lot of the stuff that he
was
did.
A voyeur and kind of,
there's creepy kind of tone undertones.
Yeah, he stalked people.
But that didn't stop him from making fantastic movies, and I still, I still laud and magnify his movies. I'll watch them because I try to take the artist away from the art. Yeah.
Even though they have quirks,
But I mean, if he had done like some, like hard, like if he had, like attacked or something, right. That'd be a different thing.
Or married his daughter. We won't mention names.
People know that. That's very obvious. And he's not one of my top 10 or 5 or whatever we're doing. Filmmakers, I love him, but I'm like, not necessarily my favorite, but I do enjoy his movies. And once again, separate the art from the artist. I will watch his movies.
Roman Polanski.
You
That's
know,
another one.
Roman Polanski, a lot of
Rosemary's Baby.
yeah, Rosemary's Baby is amazing.
Man had a little
But he had
problem.
a problem, and he had to escape America just to get away from it. So didn't really go too far, you know.
True.
And in the world, like I said, in the world of Me Too movement and stuff, that's a big thing, you know. So, you know, I don't know. Anyway, if you guys go watch some of his movies, like I said, Film Freaks will probably have one, and Criterion Watch will have one. Not sure which ones, and they will be picked by me most likely, because Paul likes Alfred Hitchcock, but I love Alfred Hitchcock. I absolutely adore his films. I'm a huge fan. Brings a tear to my eye every time I watch something of his, because they're generally that good. If you never got into Alfred Hitchcock, do it. You know, just start. I would say start off with one of the very, very famous ones, like Rear Window, Vertigo. Rear Window I did not like Rear Window the first time I saw it. Hated it. Second time I saw it, still hated it. It took a long time for me to get into that movie. Once again, because it takes place in one central location in the guy's house, and I got bored. I was like, what is going on here? Then I watched Dial M for Murder, which had Grace Kelly, and I was like, she's so beautiful. Then I watched To Catch a Thief, starring Grace Kelly, and I was like, oh my god, I have to watch Rear Window now. I have to rewatch it. So I rewatched it, and I was like, this movie's just good. I don't know what was wrong with me. I don't know why I just didn't, you know. So maybe my tastes are changing a little bit too. I don't know. Who knows? But all I know is I really, really enjoy it. It is on my top 5 list of, I think it's number 4 of my top 5. My top 5 goes, I believe, Psycho, and then it goes Vertigo, North by Northwest, Rear Window, and I think The Birds, I think, are next. So I like The Birds, and I really love the scenic thing, because John Carpenter was a huge fan of The Birds, so much so that he had he actually filmed some of the location at what is it in the where they shot The Fog was actually shot in some of where they shot The Birds.
Well, I live very close to where they shot The Birds, over in Jenner by the sea, near Santa Rosa, California, and we used to go over there a lot.
Let's go.
So let's go.
I want to go. Oh my god, we'll do that. We'll videotape it.
We'll get a bus, and just like the Merry Pranksters, we'll go on up the coast.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Holy shit. That's badass. I love it. We're here at his house right now here, and there's fucking mountains and beautifulness. It's just outside. I love being in LA, and I love this area and everything. So
yeah, it's a nice area down here. I like it, man. Near the coast.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this and taking
welcome.
your time out of your time to take your time out of your time to discuss this with me, especially since this is so last minute. You didn't we weren't really planning this originally, and I was like, hey, why don't we do this? And you were like, sure.
Yeah, why not? I love doing the improv anyway. So.
Yeah, talking about this stuff. Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening and checking this out. Please check out more Film Freaks coming up at you in March. So probably around the time that this comes out, a couple weeks later, we'll have our new. What's the new episode's going to be with? It's going to be Paul. Paul's doing one for Film Freaks for March. So I did it for Clerks. I did Clerks in February. So we're switching it every month. So I did Clerks, Kevin Smith, movie. Then he's doing whatever he's doing. I don't even know what he's doing. He doesn't tell me these things. He just he goes and does it, and then he'll tell me after it's filmed. You'll send it to me.
I worked with a lady that was in Clerks, Lamborghini or whatever his name. I forgot her last name.
Marilyn Gigalotti.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We did Lake Erie together, which is another horror movie.
Oh my god, I love Lake Erie. Wonderful movie. And she wasn't she like the real estate lady?
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
I was the fire chief.
You're the fire chief. Yeah. So there, check out Lake Erie. I think it's on Prime.
Yeah.
Or used to be on Prime. If it's still on Prime, check it out. It's a really good indie movie. And this is all still part of Indie Film Cafe. This Film Freaks was usually its own thing, and we have decided to put it all in one thing because we've got enough subscribers for one. We don't want to just keep getting more subscribers and saying, hey, subscribe to this, subscribe to that, right? Like, we got enough stuff. Let's just put them all in one, and they're all the same thing. They're all the same company. So,
that's great.
yeah. So there you go. So if you guys like Alfred Hitchcock, let us know. If you guys have a specific director that you guys like, mention down below. Maybe it'll be one of the ones we'll have on the next one of the next episodes. Paul's doing the next one, which will come out. I don't know if this will be a weekly thing or a monthly thing yet. We'll see, but it's definitely coming up. So we're just kind of playing around, seeing what we come up with. And sometimes things change and we don't get things done in time because we're busy, busy people.
Yes.
As you know, I told you my day today.
I know.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for enjoying this and checking it out, and have a good one.
Ta-ta.
Bye.